going to go ahead?
Just a little administrative task of therefore setting up the audio. Just bear with us. Got the history, we may as well do it properly. Thank you, members.
Stockport, so I think we can get going. I do, with another meeting coming on after us, I would suggest that perhaps we are, I'm not Brian Collins, we are fairly swift with this if we possibly can be, but that we do give it the due diligence that we are expected to do. So, in that case, I will start with Sedrenton apologies. I have apologies from Andrew Wood. Don't have anybody else.
No apologies, Chairman. Thank you. Councillor Peacock and Councillor Wood. Councillor, sorry.
Okay. And do we have any declarations of interest? Yep. Good. In that case, we'll move on to this special meeting, because this was not a scheduled meeting, but it's a special meeting of DG First Budget to deal with DG First Budget 2013-14. And this report provides members with details of the DG First budget for 2013-14 and the associated activity-based budget information. That budget information is on Appendix 2, rather. The process for this is with Appendix 1. The Director will take us through the highlights, and we will then be able to discuss what is in that section of the ABB budget process, which is, as I say, in Appendix 2, and then we'll have the opportunity to discuss, debate, suggest with you after you've gone through the report. Okay?
Thank you, Chair. Overview of the revenue budget before you in figures. Okay. It will be up in front of you shortly. He said, crossing his fingers. Okay. That's the general numbers. 42 million gross budget, 33.2 million net expenditure. And we have another technical problem. Isn't technology wonderful? There we go. I'll do it from here, it's probably easier. That just shows the same figures, but as a pie chart. You can see staff costs are 48% of the overall budget. Looking at the services in turn, you can see that from this, roads and neighbourhood services together account for about 60% of the budget, care and support services for about 20% of the budget. DG First generates a little under £9 million of income, and about 43% of that comes from charges to other council departments. About 3/4 of the fees and charges element is generated within facilities management from school meals. You'll find an analysis of the income on pages 43 to 45 of the ABB. Looking at our people, DG First has 1,862 people in a total of 2,409 posts. That's 1,357 full-time equivalents. This is the breakdown by pay band, by FTEs, and in terms of people. Going through the services one at a time, neighbourhood services, which is page 11 to 18, they carried out 1,200 interments, that's 124 more than last year. They maintain about 5.2 million square metres of grass. They cut that 82.3 times. They collect 75,000 tonnes of waste from 75,000 premises. That means collecting 3.9 million bins. Neighbourhood services have 304 people, 302.5 FTEs. Community safety, you'll see 82% of their budget is staff costs. They attended 1,075 incidents last year. They have 33.25 FTEs and 34 people. Roads budgets, pages 23 to 29. They surface dressed about 280 kilometres, about 7% of our roads. Carried out 24,000 pothole repairs, sprayed 14,000 tonnes of salt, treating about 203,000 kilometres of road. We replaced 319 lighting columns and repaired 4,122 faults. The road service funded through the revenue budget has 52.38 full-time equivalents. That's 59 people, plus, of course, the people in the trading account. Facilities management, pages 30 to 37. We clean 323 council buildings and schools. We provide 41 school crossing patrols and 20 playground supervisors. Last year we cooked 2.3 million school meals, of which just under 600,000 were free school meals. That's something like 12,000 meals a day. Facilities management has 275 full-time equivalents, 701 people. Care and support services delivered 350,000 visits. That's something like 40 visits every hour of the year, travelling 3 times to the moon and back in terms of mileage, 1.24 million miles. They've got 178 full-time equivalents, 313 people. Technical services, pages 46 to 49, undertook just under 16,000 building repairs and just about 850 gas safety inspections for Lawburn housing. We maintain 1,500 vehicles, and last year we achieved 100% pass rate for our large vehicle MOTs. The national average is a 79%. In technical services, there are 514 full-time equivalents and 998 people. Last slide. Last year, this is where we got our income from in our trading operations. Nearly half of it from council revenue, a third of it from council capital, and 5.8 million from external sources. The figures in the ABB are lower because we are not yet certain how much police, fire and trunk road work that we'll get, so we've been conservative in our estimates in the ABB. And I'm happy to take any questions.
It's safe to say with DG First that, the majority of your work is commissioned, therefore yes. It's not for us to decide how we deal with things because we're asked to do it, so that restricts us a little bit. I just wonder if members, Councillor Martin, you want to come in?
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's just an observation. On page 20 or 50, in some of the key outputs, fixed penalties for dog fouling and fly tipping, they seem to have went down an awful lot, as I say, in 2009, 2010, 2000 up to, as I say, 2011 to 2012, there were 138, the dog fouling, it's now down to 2012, 13, 79. Same with fly tipping, it's went from 382 to 104. Is there any reason, is that the public being more, more proactive, rather than we're just not issuing as many tickets, etc.?
We're certainly still carrying out enforcement, but we're not having to issue as many tickets. So yes, it looks from the data that like people are behaving in a better way.
Thanks, Chair. There's three questions, I think, the whole report comes to my mind, Chair. In 5.2, looking at the current vacancies level at 174, which is about 7% of the establishment, I think we put in, as a council, a maximum of 2% holding. Now, is that for any new work that's coming in, or is it for the new waste side of things? Secondly, and I totally agree with you, Chair, that we are a delivery organisation. However, that shouldn't stop us from actually doing reviewing and see where we can actually reduce costs. Or, as we said at the last meeting, look at actually increasing income and seeing where we could actually improve that opportunity. And I believe there was a report to come to the September committee of what opportunities there are actually there. When we look at the sort of bigger committees in social services and education, there doesn't seem to be a review going on of percentage savings across the next 3 years of 5, 10, 15, 20%. And I think it might be an idea to look at that bill to see if there is, I'm not saying we're going to agree with everything, but it might be an idea to actually look at that. But also included in that is the opportunities for increasing income. And I'll give you a suggestion at what I'm actually looking at. I know, for instance, in Cumbria, what they do down there with their taxis is council actually do the MOTs for the taxis, and that's an income. If we can say to taxi drivers in Dumfries and Galloway, we will give you a service that will be cheaper than where you normally go, but it'll bring income into the council as well. And also looking at the recharges. Obviously, recharges are from other services within the council, and I'm just wondering what we actually do there to try and improve, because every year there'll be an increase in recharge because of the cost of people doing jobs and all of that sort of stuff. It comes from the same budget at the end of the day. It's the council's budget at the end of the day. How are we going to get smarter in taking that forward in DG first?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, increased opportunities for income is always good, but, to be fair, we don't want to be putting other businesses out of work, so we've got to be competitive and not undercut. But I do take your point. But I think we are doing that with the fire service. I mean, I think you were hoping that we would be able to bring down other fire appliances from other councils and things like that would come down that we wouldn't have at present. Is that right?
We're certainly looking at expanding the amount of work that we do with vehicle maintenance, and we've had a recent success, and we're looking after another 50 vehicles for a private organisation. So we're doing that. Certainly we would be keen to extend our trading operations, though it's likely that we'd have to persuade the licensing board to make taxi MOTs a requirement. So yes, we will be looking at opportunities for generating income, though we are conscious that we shouldn't really be damaging the local economy by doing so. If I could go back to your comment on vacancies. The 2% was a savings assumption. It's nothing to do with the actual, and that level of vacancies can fluctuate quite a lot. So at the time we did the figures, it was 7%. I couldn't tell you what it is just at the moment, but it does go up and down.
And I understand what you're saying, but we don't want to put other businesses out of business in Dumfries and Galloway. I mean, that was a suggestion. It was but there are things like these community development trusts where potentially we can get some of the work done cheaper from community and keeping HR and health and safety policies within the council so that those local organisations can actually deliver some of the work that normally DG First would actually do as well. So I think there are opportunities there.
Councillor Wiper?
Thank you, Chair. I think I've got 3 questions as well. I was discussing in the room with Charles Clemmy on page 10, the road services budget. Actual outturn 14,571 and the budget estimate for next year, or this current year anyway, 11,368, which is nearly a £3 million drop in the revenue budget. Just while I was talking to Charles, Bill walked past and said there's a £1 million rise in the capital budget, but that still leaves an almost £2 million shortfall in the overall expenditure. And I just wondered if that could be explained. I didn't really get to end the conversation with Charlie before we came in here. If that could be explained better. And briefly, where are we? Page 16. Page 16, I would just like it explained to me, because I don't understand this. Scottish Bereavement Benchmarking Group, interment charges, family group minimum, family group average, family group maximum. I mean, that really confuses me. Are we burying families all at the one time? I know we're not, but I would just like that explained. And the last thing, on page 20, Councillor Martin touched on this subject about the drop in the dog fouling, littering, etc. I would really be interested to know what the safety team cost in 2009-10 as opposed to what it to compare it to what it costs now. For a dropping number of tickets, etc., being handed out, was it costing us a lot more then or a lot less? Just be interested in the figures for that year.
Okay, taking those in the same order you asked them. The £2 million additional expenditure last year was almost entirely due to winter, the severe winter, and dealing with that. So that was unbudgeted. Page 16, your question was about, yes, the Bereavement Benchmarking Group has a number of councils in, but those councils are organised into families, so similar councils are compared to other similar councils. So the right-hand three columns are the minimum, the average and the maximum for the family that we would benchmark against. I hope that makes more sense to you. It's the benchmarking group that we're in. A subset of that is similar councils. So no, it's nothing to do with families as in 2.4 children and the like. It's a group of councils. Okay. It's rather more difficult. I can tell you that the service costs £250,000 less than it used to, because the service only came into existence on the 1st of April this year. Last year, the services which Community Safety deliver were delivered by a variety of departments. So it's not as easy, but Policy and Resources required a saving of £250,000 from that reorganisation. So I do know that we're spending £250,000 less, but
just got a couple of things. It's about back to burials again, but it's the fact that we're actually subsidising burial costs at the moment. And whilst I don't see that, I don't want to make money out of burials, but I do think there's no reason why they shouldn't. We should subsidise them. I think they should cost what they cost, and people should pay for what they do cost. And I don't quite know why we are nearly £100,000 short on that item. And the other thing is, it's about the roads budget. I think I noticed somewhere that there's a phenomenal amount of that budget is materials, obviously, and therefore the only way we could save any money would be if we didn't do as much. But that is not up to us, because that will be how we're commissioned from PH&E, I presume.
yes, there is a very large proportion of the roads budget which is gathered together under supplies and services, and that's money which, or most of the money, which then goes to the roads trading account and is then used for purchasing materials and paying the workforce for doing the work. But yes, in general terms, if you wanted to spend less on roads, it would mean doing less.
But we can't really, because we're commissioned to do what we're commissioned to do by PH&E, so it's really not up to us to do that.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. The burial subsidy, why are we doing that?
It's largely historic. We have put up the prices for interments and for layer charges, but as you see from page 17, there is still, in effect, a £93,000 subsidy.
I think we should make that break even, if I'm being honest. I don't see why we should be subsidising it, to be perfectly frank. Right, members, any more questions on the presentation from Mr. Barker? Councillor Martin?
It's just on the dog furrow one, like, I take it, now since the new community teams have been set up, I think is it true, right, they're targeting certain areas at a time, so that actually could rise if they're targeting certain areas, the amount of fixed penalties they're putting out.
Yes, the new service operates across the region, and as you heard me say, there are 33 of them, so that's not very many people. So they will tend to respond to areas where we get complaints, whether that's littering or dog fouling, and they'll then target individuals or areas to resolve the issue.
Right, the next thing I would just like to mention would be about service reviews. I think we've got two big areas of spend, as we've been highlighted this afternoon, one being on roads and the other being on neighbourhood services. And last time we had an update on the waste collection service that's coming forward and the changes that was going to be bringing about and how we're going to have to deal with that. But there's another part of that department, and I see Fraser is here, and that is about maintaining areas of public spaces, which is our grass, our flower beds, all that kind of thing. And it's a big part of the budget for neighbourhood services. And I just wonder if there are more ways to skin a cat. And rather than DG First perhaps doing it all, perhaps we could do a bit like we've done the community resilience for winter maintenance in villages. Perhaps we could look at doing a little bit something similar within villages. And I think it's just a way of looking at it, because it is costing a lot of money, and I'm not sure that we will be able to go on doing it in the way that we are at the present. And so I wonder if we might think about having a look at that in the future. Councillor Dryborough?
Chair, my understanding is with the area discretionary budgets, there's £100,000 looking into community commissioning from DG First. And perhaps looking at that pilot first to see where that goes would be an idea, and then come back and look at see if we can do that elsewhere. It's certainly, I believe we're actually looking at that anyway. We're looking at what the process would be, what the governance would be, and all that before we actually start it. So I think that's really in this budget already.
It is, and I don't think it's something you'll be doing in a hurry, because I think you have got pilot schemes that you're looking at, and I think, to be perfectly honest, it's possibly more a rural thing than an urban one. I'm not sure the towns will welcome us hugely, but the villages are quite. Some of them are really very resilient. But you have a pilot scheme in the offing, yeah?
It isn't actually, that 100,000 is not for DG First and not necessarily for operations which DG First deliver. It's a corporate initiative, and it's actually, the initiative is being led by Community and Customer Services, though we are involved, and there are going to be a number of pilots across the region.
The other one was roads, really, and whether we could look at putting neighbourhood services and roads more together. I'm not sure how that's a big ask, I think, but I think we have to be looking at these things in the future. And again, it's not for this particular issue that we've got here, but I think it is a service review that we maybe need to have in the next year.
We can certainly look at options for integration or for closer working. There are a number of areas where similar services are delivered, so certainly we could scope out a service review and bring that back to a future meeting.
I think it would be good. It's not that we'll accept it, but I think we've got to ask the questions. I think there are problems within it, and I think localisation and everything, people might feel very strongly about it, but I think we need to look at these things as a management committee to go forward. So if members are happy that we do a couple of those 2 service reviews, that would be good. The other thing I just want to, well, actually, can we go to the recommendations in the report today, which is to receive a presentation, which we have done, and to review and agree DG First budget as detailed in Appendix 2. I think we've done that. I think we've asked the questions. I think you've gone away. I think we realise that we are limited in many ways, but it doesn't mean to say that we can't find savings or better ways of doing things or improved working processes, and I think that needs to be an ongoing issue. So are we happy with those recommendations? Numbers, yeah. The other thing that we discussed at our last meeting was that, which was before this meeting was scheduled, was that we would have a sort of a seminar as opposed to a committee meeting on activity-based budgeting. Do members still want to do that in a more informal way, look at the budget and scrutinise it more? Because we can do that if you'd like. Or do you feel that, yes, you'd like to do that, Councillor Dryburgh?
I think we should still have an informal sort of seminar, and I think we said it at Garrick as well, because it's easier to call on officers to have a look at the overall budget and see where there are potential opportunities if we think outside the box.
Be useful, and I think we could have tables with all the various heads of departments there that we can explain their budgets to us and everything else, and I think that would be very useful. So I think we will continue with that as a seminar after the recess, if that's all right.
Yes.
Director, please. I have no further business. Thank you very much for your attendance.